Welcome to another edition of Creating Art with Mrs. Pappas. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this edition of Creating Art. Today's lesson is going to be on Blackout poetry. I actually found this online when I was doing some research, and probably a while ago, probably like over a year ago, and I find it absolutely fascinating. For this lesson, we don't need a lot, okay? So you will need either a newspaper or a magazine or an old book. I have an old book right here. Every so often I clean out my library. I have a very extensive library. And as books get old and worn, pages kind of get dull and kind of turned over, usually I'll either recycle the books or I bring them to a used bookstore. And I also like to create art with them. And this is something you can do with this. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Okay, so here I also have pages from the newspaper. Okay, so you can see here, I cut out some pages. You want something that kind of grabs your attention, has a lot of words to them, because we're not going to really use the images. We are going to use the section that has words on it. And within those words, we're going to find poems, and we're going to draw some pictures. Okay, so I also have pages from a magazine article that comes in the mail. So I have a couple of sources here. Okay, so if you take a look at here on my little sheet, I have a sample. Okay, and this one is in color. Okay. So one of the things is you want to kind of look inside the article for words that kind of pop out. So to keep in just a little history on Blackout poetry, it actually has been around since Benjamin Franklin's time. People used to take their newspapers, and newspapers back then were in lots of columns, and they would actually repurpose them. Okay, and as they repurposed them, they would go through and they would find words, and they would create, okay, images and poems from them. Okay. So for this particular one, I actually pulled out the words, and I'm kind of getting a little ahead of myself. Let's kind of back up a little bit and go from the beginning. So the first thing, as I said, you want to grab your article. Okay, so I have my article here. Okay, as you can see, it's a little marked up. Okay. So one of the things, so I'm going to start with the plain one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do what's called perusing. I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to go over and I'm going to start to underline words that pop out at me, things that kind of grab my attention. Okay, so that's kind of what I want to do. So as I'm going through here, I'm going to underline the words that grab my attention. And once I do that, and you kind of can decide because what happens is the poem kind of evolves based on these words that you select. Once that you've perused and you've underlined words that kind of pop out, then you're going to go back and you're going to reread them. And you're going to pretty much read the article to find connecting words, words that will actually help the words that you've underlined make sense. Okay, so let's take a look at how this is going to work. All right, so now that I have my words underlined and I've actually went through and I found some connecting words, what I'm going to do is I am going to simply start writing down all the words that I found on my page. All right, so what words did I find? I found teams, create, basketball. So as you can see, it's a sports article. Okay, play, novel, Olympics. Okay, let's see, restarting, give, purpose, meaningless, makeup, conflicts, buildings, team. So you're going to keep on making a list of all these words. Will they make sense? Not at first. Okay? At first, they won't all make sense. Okay? Then I have circumstances, challenges. Okay, look, forward, next, one, game. All right, so here is a list of the words that I have underlined. Now, one of the things that I do need to go back is I need to find some connecting words because some of these words are missing those connecting words. So if I'm going to go back to my article and I'm going to say, okay, teams create. Well, I need a connecting word right here. And I found one, the word would. Teams would create. Okay, so now I have teams would create. Oh, I found another word next to that. Okay, that's hope, which is after create. So one of the things that's very, very important as you're selecting your words have to be used in order. Because if they're not, then your reader won't understand what you're trying to say. Okay, so that's very important. Okay, and as you're looking at this, there are so many different ways of making poems. So you have to decide what kind of poem do you want to create. Well, sometimes it kind of evolves, all right, based on what you write down. So now I have teams would create hope. Gee, I really like that line. And then if I look at that, I'm like, gee, that's 5 syllables. Do you know there's a poem where the first line is 5 syllables? And that's called a haiku poem. A haiku poem is made up of first line is 5 syllables, second line is 7 syllables, and the third line is 5 syllables. So I wonder if maybe I can actually create a haiku poem. Well, let's find out. Teams is 1 syllable, would is another, create, that's 2 syllables, so that's 3, 4, hope, that's 5 syllables right there, since create is 2 syllables. All right, so I have my first line. Teams would create hope. Now, let me keep going here and see. Restart and give purpose. Again, I need a connecting word. So if I go back, all right, so again, another connecting word. It's the same word that I used up top, but that's okay. All right, because sometimes it's kind of hard. One of the things doing this, you can't just pick any word you want, because you have to pick a word that already exists. You are creating a piece of artwork and a piece of poetry with something that's already in existence. So you're repurposing, basically, your newspaper, your magazine article, or even your book. Okay? So restarting would give purpose. Let me see. I like that line. So I'm gonna circle that line. Look, let's see, meaningless, makeup, conflicts, building team, circumstances, challenges, look forward, next one game. How about look forward, next game? All right, I kind of like that. So let's see if it does fit my haiku or if I need to make changes. Restarting, so that's 3 syllables. Would, that would be number 4. Give, number 5. Purpose, 6 and 7. So that's my 7 syllables. This is 7, this is 5. Now let's see, look forward, next game. Look forward, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there is my 5, 7, 5. So I found a haiku poem in my article. Now, even though I'm not using the word basketball, but I am using the word game, okay, restarting. So that's going to kind of tell me what kind of images that I want to do, okay? So I would like to actually put a basketball player in there, but not just a basketball player, some sports players. So one of the things you want to do is, okay, so I do have my article. So say, for instance, you have your article. You can put a piece of paper on top. And if you take a look at my paper, I actually have squares here. And these squares indicate the squares where I actually took my marker and blocked out the words that I want to use for my finished piece. Okay, so I put my paper on top, and what did I start doing? Around those squares, I drew my basketball player, but then baseball is also not happening. I do like to watch baseball as well. So here's my baseball player walking off the field. Okay, so here I drew it on a plain piece of paper. So this way then, because the thing is, I don't want to draw it on my newspaper until I've worked out my composition, worked out my shapes, make sure I have what I need. Okay, so now that I have, and I actually kept the title of the article, and I actually outlined on pause because that's what I wanted my title to be for this particular piece of artwork. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do, and for this you can use a marker or you can use a Sharpie. This is where you start lining out everything else. So I am going to line out, put lines through the words that I don't want. Okay, and so I can do my lines. I don't have to do my lines straight across. I can. But I can also do my lines in different directions as well. And that could actually be part of my design by the time I'm done. So this is what's going to take some time. Now I can just take my marker or my Sharpie, and I can just make everything nice and black and dark, just like this, if I so choose. The other thing that I can do, I can actually also use some different colors. Okay, so I've started doing the top in black, but I can also get my colored markers instead of just using black for the whole thing, and I can start adding some color. So now if I take a look at this, if I want, say, the stand of my basketball hoop to stand out, I can actually just add color to that. Okay, I'm going to make it brown here, but I think I'm going to make the rim of my basket red so it stands out even more. I want to make sure as I'm doing this, I do not accidentally cover over the words that make up my poem. And I'm going to keep on working on this until it's completely finished. Now I'm going to show you one that I did finish. It's kind of a fun little one, okay? I showed you this a little earlier. So this is called Opening Lines. So let me read you what I pulled out. In this poems, some poems do not make sense. This poem kind of makes sense. It says, design of Vermeer's famous investigated topics from medieval production, surprising a fairy tale on a fairy tale, a small figure absent promise in a tune he sings. Well, after I pulled out my poem, as you can call it, it's kind of like a little saying, then medieval stuck out to me. So what did I do is I created a castle. okay, with a path going through. And you can see I actually used a lot of different colors on my markers. Right. Well, I hope you have fun with this. I had a lot of fun, as you can see. Here's a couple of more samples, okay? This one is standing in hushed silence, staring beyond, okay? And you can just see that's in black and white. This one is in color. One of the things that I'm going to do, and I hope you try this as well, if you find a book at home, okay, you can actually create a series of poems and drawings and designs in your book on different pages. So this book could become, say, a little journal where you find something that you want to say within something that already exists. Okay, until next time, this is Mrs. Pappas. Happy drawing!